Hey, my name is Lavra, and I'm 42 years old. I've been working as a senior marketing strategist at a well-established firm in downtown Chicago for the past 15 years. At this point, I know the ins and outs of my job like the back of my hand. The corporate world has always been fast-paced and challenging, and I've embraced it as the thing that kept me going, especially after everything that happened. You see, I've learned over the years that when you're going through pain, work becomes a refuge, a distraction, really. And if there's one thing I've mastered, it's keeping my mind busy, keeping it moving forward. I'd always been a driven person. Jack, my late husband, used to joke that I was born with a to-do list in my hand. Even before we met, I had big goals, and I was determined to achieve them. That's probably why, when I met Jack and we got married, I didn't just stop chasing my dreams. I still loved my career, but I also loved him. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had it all: work, love, happiness. But that was before Jack got sick, before everything changed. I remember the day the doctors told us he had cancer like it was yesterday. Jack was 44, healthy, fit, someone who had always lived life to the fullest. I had never imagined that something like this could happen to us, to him. And yet it did. The world we had so carefully built together started to crumble. His diagnosis felt like a punch to the gut, sudden, unexpected, and unrelenting. The treatment was grueling, the nights long and full of worry, the endless hospital visits, the helplessness. Every time I saw Jack struggle, every time his condition worsened, I felt like I was losing a part of myself. But I couldn't show that to him. I had to be strong for him. I couldn't let him see how broken I was inside. So I became the caretaker. I focused on the routines, the medications, the doctor's appointments, the meals, and pushed my own feelings aside. I told myself it was temporary, that once we got through this, things would go back to normal. But I knew deep down things would never be the same again. Jack fought for as long as he could. He did it for me, for us. But in the end, cancer won. I lost him just over 2 years ago, and with that loss, I lost a part of myself. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, and all I could do was hold on. The grief came in waves at first. It was unbearable, like drowning in an ocean of sadness. But over time, I learned how to manage it, how to function. I threw myself into my work as I always had. It was easier that way. I could bury the pain in spreadsheets and strategy meetings, in deadlines and presentations. It was safe. And for a while, that was enough. But no matter how much work I did, how many hours I spent at the office, there was always an emptiness waiting for me when I got home. Jack's absence was everywhere, in the quiet house, in the empty space beside me on the couch. It wasn't just the loss of a person. It was the loss of a future. The future we had planned, the dreams we had shared. I couldn't bear to look at the life I had built without him. So I focused only on what was in front of me, my job, my responsibilities, my routines. It wasn't until one particular Thursday that I found myself face to face with something unexpected. A reminder of something I had buried deep inside me. Hope, connection, even love. I was in the office late, as usual, reviewing an upcoming campaign for a new client. The city outside was quiet, the streets bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. I'd been pushing myself harder than ever lately, working late into the night, ignoring the ache that came with being alone. But that day, the weight of everything, of Jack's absence, of the years I had spent pretending to be okay, caught up with me. As I sat at my desk, absorbed in the task at hand, I overheard voices in the hallway. The usual office chatter, laughing, a few greetings, but then a deeper male voice. The sound of someone unfamiliar. I paused, my hand resting over the keyboard, and I heard my assistant, Katie, laughing in reply. Come on in, she said. Laura's just wrapping up some work. I'll introduce you. I frowned. The new client, maybe? I didn't recognize the voice, and I didn't remember any new appointments. But before I could think too much about it, the door to my office opened. Lavra, I'd like you to meet Ryan, Katie said, stepping aside. And then I saw him. Ryan. It had been years since I'd seen him. Last years. Since I last saw the bright-eyed young man I'd met at a networking event ages ago. Back then, he was fresh-faced, full of energy, and just starting out in the industry. He had been working for a different marketing firm, and we'd crossed paths a few times at events. But he hadn't left much of an impression on me. At least, that's what I told myself. But now, standing in front of me, I couldn't deny that something was different. Ryan was taller, more confident, and there was a sharpness to his presence that commanded attention. He had grown into his features, and the charm I remembered was still there. But there was something more to him now, something that drew me in. He smiled, that familiar warmth lighting up his face. Lavra, it's good to see you again. I wasn't sure you'd remember me, he said, extending a hand. We met a long time ago. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say. I hadn't expected this. Hadn't prepared myself for the sudden shift in the air around me. His presence, his calm, easy demeanor seemed to pull me in like a magnet. I had been so focused on my grief, on staying closed off to anything that might hurt me again, that I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. And in that moment, Ryan was looking at me like he saw me. Really saw me. I took his hand, my pulse unexpectedly quickening. I remember, I said, my voice softer than I intended. It's been a long time. Ryan's eyes held mine for a moment, the tension in the air thickening. There was something in his gaze, something sincere, something that hinted at more than just a business introduction. Well, I was hoping we could talk, he said, his tone warmer, more personal. I've been working on a new project, and I think you're the perfect person to help us with it. His words pulled me back to reality. I had a job to do, a responsibility. That's what I told myself. No room for distractions. But as he spoke, I couldn't ignore the pull, the stirring deep inside me that I had kept buried for so long. Ryan was standing there, so close, yet I couldn't bring myself to pull away. Was I imagining this? Was this just another fleeting moment that would pass? Or was there something more? The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze. Every time Ryan spoke to me, every time our hands brushed as we went over project details, I felt that same pull, and I didn't know what to do with it. What was happening to me? Was I ready for this? When the day came to a close, and I was packing up my things, I caught myself looking at the door. Had I been waiting for him to leave? Or was I hoping he would stay? Ryan stepped toward me, his voice lowering. Lavra, he said, his tone quiet, almost hesitant. Can I ask you something? I turned to face him, feeling a mix of anticipation and confusion. Of course, I replied, not sure what to expect. Are you happy? He asked, his eyes searching mine. I mean, really happy. Or have you just been surviving? His question caught me off guard. I blinked, unsure of how to answer. The truth was, I wasn't sure. I had spent so long pretending to be fine, convincing myself that everything would get better eventually. But the reality was, I didn't know what happiness felt like anymore. Guess I'm just... I trailed off, unsure how to put it into words. I'm getting by, but happy. I'm not sure. Ryan nodded slowly, like he understood. Sometimes getting by isn't enough, he said gently. I think you deserve more than that. And just like that, something shifted. Something clicked deep within me. I wasn't sure where this conversation would lead, or what Ryan meant to me, but for the first time in a long while, I felt something stir inside me. Something other than grief, other than loss. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe I didn't have to live in the shadow of my past forever. Maybe it was time to start living again. The days after Ryan's unexpected visit to my office were a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I found myself buried in work as usual, trying to keep my mind focused on deadlines and campaigns. On the other hand, Ryan's words, his presence, and the subtle way he had made me feel something that I had buried deep inside for so long kept resurfacing. I tried to push it all away. I had made it clear to myself after losing Jack that I wasn't interested in opening up again. Love, I had convinced myself, was a dangerous thing. It was full of uncertainty, vulnerability, and the kind of emotional risk I wasn't willing to take. Jack had taught me how fragile life was, how quickly things could change. And after his death, I had wrapped myself in a cocoon of work and routine, using it as a shield against the heartache that came with loss. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, there was a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach every time I thought about Ryan. He hadn't just been kind to me. He had been patient. He had seen through the walls I'd built, through the layers of grief and pain I had carefully tucked away. And I hated how much I wanted to let him in. It wasn't just that he was attractive, though he was tall, dark-haired, with those captivating blue eyes and that irresistible smile. It was the way he made me feel alive again, in ways I hadn't felt since before Jack's diagnosis. Ryan made me feel like there was a future, a possibility, something beyond my past. But at the same time, the thought of letting go of the grief I had held onto for so long terrified me. I knew I couldn't keep running from it. And yet, every time I saw Ryan, every time I heard his voice or felt his gaze on me, I knew I was inching closer to a decision I wasn't sure I was ready for. The next time I saw him, it was a week after our initial meeting in the office. It had been a whirlwind of client meetings and deadlines for me, and I had pushed the thoughts of him to the back of my mind, convinced I could just move forward, business as usual. But when I got a message from him late one afternoon, "Hey, are you free for dinner tomorrow night? I'd really like to talk to you more." I felt my heart flutter. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen of my phone, torn between saying yes and saying no. On the one hand, I wanted to see him again. I wanted to hear his voice, laugh with him, share a quiet evening without the weight of my past looming over me. But on the other hand, I wasn't sure I was ready to open that door again. What if it hurt? What if I let myself feel something only to lose it? After much deliberation, I found myself typing a response. "Okay, dinner sounds good." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The next evening, as I prepared for dinner, I couldn't shake the nervous excitement bubbling inside me. I dressed casually, opting for a simple black blouse and jeans, nothing too formal, just enough to feel comfortable but still presentable. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I realized I hadn't really made an effort to look nice for anyone in a long time. The reflection staring back at me was someone I didn't entirely recognize, a woman who had been hiding behind work for far too long, afraid to embrace the world outside her grief. The restaurant Ryan had chosen was a quiet, intimate Italian place on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where the lights were dim and the chatter of other patrons created a soft, cozy atmosphere. When I arrived, Ryan was already there, sitting at a table near the window, a glass of wine in his hand. He looked up as I walked in, and when our eyes met, I saw a spark of recognition, a warmth that made me feel both welcome and vulnerable at the same time. "Hey, Lavra," he said, standing up to greet me. "You look great. I'm glad you could make it." I smiled, feeling my cheeks flush slightly. Thanks, I said, sitting down across from him. It's been a crazy week, but I'm glad we could finally sit down and talk. Ryan smiled warmly, but there was a hint of something else in his eyes, something more serious, more searching. I know it's been a while, but I've really been thinking about you. About us. I blinked, taken off guard by his directness. We hadn't really talked much since our brief meeting at the office. A few casual messages here and there, but nothing that would indicate he was thinking about me in that way. Us? I repeated, unsure how to respond. Ryan nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. Yeah. I know we're both in different places in our lives, but I can't help feeling like there's something here between us. Something worth exploring. And I want to know if you feel the same way. I felt a lump form in my throat. His words were so direct, so open, that I couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions flood over me. Part of me wanted to push him away, to tell him it was too soon, that I wasn't ready for this. But another part of me, the part I had buried so deep, was screaming at me to take a chance. I don't know what I'm ready for, Ryan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I've been through so much. I don't know if I can open myself up to someone again. Ryan reached across the table, his hand resting gently on mine. You don't have to know all the answers right now, Lavra. I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking for a chance to see where this could go. The sincerity in his voice made my heart ache. He wasn't asking for perfection. He wasn't asking for me to forget the past. He was simply asking for me to be present with him, to allow myself to feel something again. And for the first time in years, I found myself wondering if it was time to take that leap. We spent the rest of the evening talking about work, about our families, about what we wanted from life. It was easy. It felt natural, like I had known him forever. But more than that, I felt something new stirring inside me. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a possibility for love again. Not the kind of love I had with Jack, which had been all-consuming and perfect in its own way. But a new kind of love. One that wasn't perfect, but real. A love that could heal, that could grow, that could be better. As we said goodnight, Ryan leaned in for a brief kiss on my cheek. Thanks for tonight, Lavra. I'm really glad we did this. I stood there, watching him walk away, feeling a sense of warmth spread through me. Maybe it was the start of something new. Maybe it was just the beginning. The following weeks felt like a blur of emotions, a delicate dance between the past and the future. I found myself spending more and more time with Ryan. What began as a few casual meetings turned into dinner dates, long walks through the city, and late-night phone calls. With each passing moment, I felt the walls I had spent years building start to crumble slowly, almost imperceptibly, until it became impossible to ignore. I was terrified, of course. Terrified of letting someone in again. Terrified of being vulnerable. Of falling for someone who might not be there when I needed them most. But with Ryan, everything felt different. He wasn't trying to fix me. He wasn't asking me to forget about Jack. He was just there, present, patient, and understanding. It was as if he knew exactly what I needed, even when I didn't know it myself. And yet, the fear still lingered. I had always been in control of my life, of my emotions. I was the one who made decisions, who pushed forward, who buried my grief under the weight of my work. But with Ryan, I felt like I was slowly losing control. And for someone like me, that was both exhilarating and terrifying. We had been dating for almost 2 months when we had our first real moment of reckoning. It was a quiet Sunday evening, the kind of evening where everything feels still, where time seems to slow down just enough to let you breathe. We had spent the day together, exploring a new museum exhibit, having lunch at a quaint little cafe. Everything had felt easy, comfortable, natural. But as the day came to a close and we sat on my couch, talking about the things that mattered to us, life, love, regrets, I could feel the weight of something unspoken hanging in the air. Ryan was sitting next to me, his knee brushing against mine as he leaned forward, his gaze fixed on me. I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the sincerity in his expression. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. "Lavra," he began, his voice steady but low. "There's something I need to tell you. I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I want to be honest with you. I care about you a lot, more than I expected." My heart skipped a beat. The words were simple, but the intensity behind them made my chest tighten. "I care about you too, Ryan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can open myself up to someone else. After everything with Jack, I am scared. Scared of what it might mean. Scared that I'll lose you, just like I lost him." Ryan's hand found mine, his fingers interlacing with mine in a way that felt so natural, so right. "I'm not asking you to forget about Jack. I would never ask that. But I want you to know that I'm here, Lavra. I'm here for you, not as a replacement, but as someone who wants to be with you. Someone who wants to help you heal. I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise that I'll be here through it all." His words hit me harder than I expected. I had spent so long thinking I couldn't love again, that I would never find someone who could understand the depth of my grief. But Ryan wasn't asking me to forget. He wasn't asking me to move on too quickly. He was asking me to take a chance on him. A chance on us. A chance on love. I looked down at our joined hands, feeling the warmth of his touch seep into my skin, calming the storm that had been brewing inside me. The fear still lingered, but something else was beginning to take its place. Hope. Hope that maybe I could start living again. Hope that maybe I didn't have to carry my grief alone forever. "I'm scared," I whispered, my voice trembling with the rawness of my emotions. "I'm scared of what could happen, of opening my heart and getting hurt again. I don't know if I can go through that again, Ryan. I don't know if I'm strong enough." Ryan squeezed my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles in a slow, reassuring motion. "You don't have to go through it alone, Lavra. You have me. And you don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to be vulnerable, to feel everything, to let yourself heal at your own pace. I'm not going anywhere." His words were like a balm to my wounded soul. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to let go of the tight grip I had on my emotions. For the first time, I allowed myself to cry. I cried for Jack, for the love I had lost. I cried for the pain I had carried with me for so long, and for the hope that had started to bloom in my heart. Ryan held me as I cried, not saying anything, just offering his presence, his warmth. And in that moment, I knew that I wasn't ready for everything, but maybe, just maybe, I was ready to take the first step toward healing, to let myself feel again. The next few weeks passed in a blur of discovery. I wasn't healed, not by any means, but I was starting to open up. Ryan and I spent more time together, quiet evenings, laughter over shared meals, walks in the park, where we talked about everything and nothing. Each moment felt like a small victory, a step forward into something new. And then, one night, we found ourselves sitting on the rooftop of my apartment building, the city lights twinkling below us. The air was crisp, the stars bright above. We had spent the evening talking about our childhoods, about what we wanted from life, about the kind of love we both believed in. And in that moment, something shifted between us. Ryan turned to me, his expression soft, but his eyes filled with determination. "Lavra," he said, his voice low but clear. I'm not asking you to forget about your past, or to love me in the same way you loved Jack. I'm just asking you to let me be part of your future. I want to be with you, for who you are now. And if you're willing to take that leap with me, I'll be right there beside you. The words were simple, but they carried so much weight. I felt the walls around my heart begin to crack, to shift, as I realized something that terrified me more than anything. I was ready to open my heart again, ready to let someone in. I turned to him, my voice barely a whisper. I'm ready, Ryan. I'm ready to try, to see where this could go. Ryan's face broke into a smile that reached his eyes and lit up his entire face. He leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in a soft, gentle kiss, one that was filled with promise, with hope. And in that kiss, I knew that I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was beginning to live again.